Have you ever witnessed a life-altering betrayal so shocking that it changed someone in an instant? That's precisely what happened to Alana Rivers when she stepped into her own bedroom and discovered her husband, a powerful millionaire, entangled in the arms of another woman. No screaming, no tantrums. Instead, she did something nobody could have predicted. She pulled out the deed to their luxurious mansion, calmly handed it over, and walked away. What could drive someone to surrender everything with such composure? This is the haunting story of love, ambition, deception, and triumph, an unforgettable tale of a woman who refused to be broken. Alana Rivers was born in a working-class neighborhood in the outskirts of Rockford, Illinois. The brick apartment building she called home vibrated with everyday life, a constant hustle of laborers, factory workers, and single mothers struggling to make ends meet. It was a place where people's ambitions were often overshadowed by the grinding reality of routine labor. Alana's childhood was neither miserable nor easy. It was characterized by the relentless sense that there was more out there beyond the cracked sidewalks and the rusted chain-link fences. Her mother, Judith Rivers, was a homemaker who spent her evenings tutoring neighborhood kids in basic math and English, sometimes for free, sometimes for whatever money their parents could spare. Alana's father, Everett Rivers, worked on the assembly line at a local auto parts plant. He put in long hours, sacrificing personal comfort to ensure that his family always had the essentials. Still, every month was a delicate dance of paying bills just in time before the electricity got cut off. But despite the hardships, the Rivers household thrived on love and the unspoken hope that one day Alana would break the cycle. An unyielding curiosity drove young Alana to excel at school. She had an aptitude for numbers that seemed almost preternatural. By the time she was in high school, she was balancing the family checkbook, negotiating utility bills to reduce costs, and exploring ways to maximize household savings. Her parents encouraged her, impressed by her skill and unwavering determination. At night, Alana would watch old interviews with financial moguls like Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, and even local success stories like that of Grace Adams, a Rockford entrepreneur who had built a multi-million-dollar real estate firm from scratch. Alana's father once said, "You've got a better mind for business at 16 than my boss does at 50. She took that to heart, deciding she would one day live in a world free of financial constraints. The dream was simple: rise out of Rockford and make something significant of herself. She envisioned a life where her parents could retire comfortably, where she could set her own course in the world of high finance and real estate. But dreams often demand sacrifices. After graduating with honors, Alana secured a scholarship to a prestigious business program at Greenfield University. It was located several states away, but she didn't hesitate to leave her hometown behind. Her mother cried the night before she left, while her father could only pat her on the back, pride shining in his eyes. All they wished was for her to remain true to herself. Greenfield University was an entirely different world. The grand clock tower on campus, the pristine lawns, and the towering dormitories were a universe away from Rockford's gritty streets. Alana was no longer the smartest girl in the room. She found herself among academic prodigies, wealthy children of corporate magnates, and international students who spoke casually about traveling the world on private jets. If she wanted to keep up, she had to work harder than ever. Each semester, she juggled part-time jobs, volunteering in business clubs, and rigorous class schedules. She quickly gained a reputation for being tireless, earning top marks in finance, economics, and business strategy. Her professors took notice, recommending her for internships at various firms. And it was during her junior year internship at Treadwell Capital where she met the man who would reshape her destiny, Crispin Thorne. Crispin Thorne was a suave, ambitious entrepreneur who owned a flourishing import-export company. He was not just a typical trust fund baby making easy money off family wealth. He possessed a shrewd business sense and a charm that could make any room go quiet the moment he walked in. Tall, with salt and pepper hair despite being in his early 30s, Crispin carried himself with an air of maturity and sophistication. He dressed sharply, often sporting custom-tailored suits that accentuated his broad shoulders. When Crispin visited Treadwell Capital to discuss financing for an upcoming project, the entire office buzzed. He was known for philanthropic gestures, having donated large sums to children's hospitals, including one near Rockford that Alana's father once mentioned. The mere mention of Crispin's name was enough to make junior executives scramble to prepare a warm welcome. But Crispin wasn't alone. He was accompanied by his best friend and business partner, Marcus Caldwell. Alana worked in the research department at Treadwell Capital as an intern, sifting through proposals and analyzing market trends. During Crispin's visit, her manager assigned her to compile background data on his new business venture. As Crispin walked through the glass doors flanked by Treadwell's top brass, Alana peeked from her desk in awe. She noted his perfect posture, the ease with which he exchanged pleasantries, and the confident handshake he offered every executive. Fate intervened when Crispin took a brief tour of the research department. As he passed Alana's desk, she stood to greet him, inadvertently knocking over a small stack of financial reports, papers scattered across the floor. She scrambled to gather them, red-faced. Crispin knelt without hesitation, helping her collect the wayward documents. In that instant, their eyes met. Alana stammered an apology. "Don't worry about it," Crispin said, handing her the last report. He glanced at her name badge. "Alana Rivers, right. I saw your name on one of those reports. I'm impressed with your work so far." He offered her a smile that was unexpectedly warm, so at odds with the imposing figure he cut. Alana could barely utter a coherent response. She simply nodded and thanked him. Moments later, Crispin was whisked away by the Treadwell CEO, leaving Alana breathless and inexplicably exhilarated. That fleeting encounter blossomed into something more when Crispin asked specifically for Alana's analysis on the viability of expanding his import-export business into Asia. Managers usually handled those tasks, but Crispin insisted, "I want the person who has the raw talent." The data analysis by Ms. Rivers was thorough and comprehensive. Suddenly, Alana was thrust into high-level meetings, preparing presentations, and debating strategies with Crispin and Treadwell executives. It wasn't just Crispin's looks or wealth that intrigued Alana, though she couldn't deny an undeniable attraction. More than that, she admired how Crispin combined heart and strategy. His philanthropic pursuits showed a deep concern for community, while his business acumen showcased a relentless desire to succeed. She couldn't help seeing reflections of her own ambition in him. Outside the office, Crispin began asking her to join him for coffee after late-night strategy sessions. Initially, she hesitated, concerned about crossing professional boundaries, but Crispin had a way of making her feel comfortable. One evening in the corner of a trendy cafe near campus, Crispin asked her about her background. Alana hesitated, slightly self-conscious about her modest upbringing. Nonetheless, she told him of her life in Rockford, her parents' sacrifices, her dream to become a major player in finance. Crispin listened with genuine interest. "People like us, who come from humble beginnings, have a different kind of drive," he said. "I wasn't born into wealth either. My father was a merchant marine away at sea for months at a time. We didn't always know if he'd come back safely. I learned to cherish family and found out early on that making money isn't just about greed, it's about providing security." Their shared sense of purpose seemed to link them. Over cups of black coffee, Crispin and Alana exchanged visions of the future, discussing everything from philanthropic goals to the industries poised for explosive growth. These conversations filled Alana with a sense of destiny. She had never felt more alive. As the internship drew to a close, Crispin made an unexpected proposal. "Once you graduate, come work for me," he said, placing a business card gently into her palm. "I've seen enough to know you belong in my circle." Alana nodded slowly, a thrill racing through her. Crispin's circle. It felt like a golden ticket to break free from the mediocrity she'd always feared. Still, she tried to remain grounded. She had to finish her degree, weigh multiple offers that might come her way. But Crispin's persuasive charm and proven track record made the choice practically inevitable. Little did she realize that Crispin's offer was more than professional. A few weeks later, Crispin took her out to dinner, a formal affair at a Michelin-starred restaurant. Over candlelight and exquisite cuisine, Crispin finally made his romantic intentions clear. By the time the evening ended, Alana found herself hopelessly enamored with him, enthralled by his vision of a shared future. By the time Alana graduated, Crispin had orchestrated a swift courtship. He was a man who knew what he wanted, and he wanted Alana. They announced their engagement 6 months after her graduation, to the delight and occasional shock of colleagues and acquaintances. Some questioned the whirlwind romance, speculating that Crispin was simply infatuated with the bright young mind. Others whispered that Alana was interested solely in Crispin's fortune and name. But to Alana, it felt like destiny written in the stars. She wholeheartedly believed they were partners in every sense, destined to conquer the business world side by side. Their wedding was a lavish affair. Crispin booked the Grand Meridian Hotel's ballroom, adorning it with rare orchids, crystal chandeliers, and a string quartet playing classical tunes. Friends and family flew in from all corners of the country. Alana's parents, humble as they were, could scarcely comprehend the opulence that Crispin casually displayed. But their daughter's radiant smile quelled any doubts. Dressed in a gown designed by a renowned fashion house, one Crispin insisted on purchasing, Alana felt like Cinderella at the ball. When she walked down the aisle, Crispin's eyes glistened. He looked at her as if she were the center of his universe. Their honeymoon took them to Bora Bora, where Crispin, forever restless, made a point of visiting potential business prospects even on a romantic vacation. Alana didn't mind. She welcomed the immersion into Crispin's world. They spent days wandering pristine beaches, discussing future expansion plans, philanthropic ventures, and life goals. Shortly after their return, Crispin surprised Alana with a gift that would cement their new status: a sprawling mansion in Lake Forest just outside Chicago. Set behind wrought iron gates, the property had manicured gardens, a cascading fountain, and floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked a private lake. Crispin had purchased it at a jaw-dropping price, swiftly signing the deed in both their names. Alana's heart pounded as they took their first steps inside together. She couldn't believe she was the joint owner of such a magnificent estate. Every step echoed against marble floors, a testament to how far she had come from her Rockford roots. But for all the elegance, the house was also a symbol of Crispin's unyielding pace. Almost immediately, he initiated renovations, installing advanced security systems, remodeling the kitchen, and building a private office suite for Alana so she could eventually branch out and start her own venture. His generosity knew no bounds, but so did his expectations. Crispin wanted Alana to be the perfect partner, both at home and in business. She thrived under this arrangement, diving into her new position within Crispin's import-export empire, forging relationships with global clients, analyzing new markets, and working endless hours to prove her worth. The first year of marriage passed in a blur of cocktail parties, high-profile charity galas, and business trips. Alana found herself shuttling between New York, London, and Tokyo, or hosting Crispin's elite associates at their mansion. Everything was glamorous, though there was an undercurrent of unease. Crispin's schedule became more erratic. He was in and out of the house, traveling on short notice. Their pillow talk dwindled, replaced by midnight phone calls and impromptu strategy sessions. Sometimes Crispin would vanish into his study for hours, emerging only to make cryptic remarks about a new deal or an important client. Alana, ever eager to please, dismissed her nagging concerns. She convinced herself it was part of climbing the ladder with Crispin by her side. They were building an empire after all. A few sacrifices in personal time were a small price to pay. It was at a real estate conference in Las Vegas that Alana first caught wind of Crispin's potential indiscretions. She was attending a keynote speech on commercial properties in Asia, standing near the back of the massive auditorium, when a fellow attendee, Avery Harlington, a property broker from Texas, recognized her. Avery had made a name for himself scouting exclusive ranches for Hollywood celebrities. He sidled up to Alana with an air of friendly gossip. "Hey, didn't expect to see you here alone. Where's Crispin? He's not usually one to miss a business function like this," Avery asked, adjusting his bolo tie. "Traveling again," Alana replied. "He's checking on our European offices this week." Avery offered a knowing smile that made Alana's stomach twist. "You know, I ran into Crispin a while back at a charity event in Houston. He was there with a woman named Kendra Larrabee. She's an interior designer, I think. Do you know her? Alana felt her heart skip a beat. She kept her voice steady. Yes, Crispin's used her for some design work. They're acquaintances. Avery shrugged. Well, they seemed close. I assumed you were out of town and Crispin just didn't want to be alone. But you know how people talk. Didn't look purely professional. The remark lingered uncomfortably in Alana's mind. She forced a laugh and quickly shifted the conversation, focusing on Avery's property deals. Yet a dark cloud had settled over her thoughts. Crispin and Kendra. She recalled Crispin mentioning an interior designer from Dallas who was helping him refurbish a chain of hotels. Could Crispin be crossing lines? Alana tried to brush off the suspicion. Crispin was a charmer. Yes, but he had never given her any concrete reason to doubt his loyalty. Still, from that point on, she became more vigilant. She noticed Crispin's phone was always face down, occasionally locked with a passcode she didn't recognize. He left for business dinners at odd hours, and phone calls during family gatherings had become the norm. Yet Crispin remained outwardly affectionate toward her, showering her with pricey gifts, surprising her with weekend getaways whenever their schedules aligned. Eventually, another red flag emerged through Crispin's personal assistant, Marta Ruiz. One evening, Marta called Alana about a scheduling conflict. Crispin was supposed to attend a philanthropic event benefiting a Rockford Children's Hospital, the same one Crispin had donated to in the past. However, Crispin had a last-minute client dinner that took precedence, so he wanted Alana to attend in his stead. He told me to rearrange the schedule to keep both events, Marta said apologetically. But I can't figure out how. The dinner is in another city and the timing doesn't match up. Alana sighed. It's all right, Marta. I'll represent Crispin at the hospital event. He can do the dinner. Just let me know if there's anything else. Actually, Marta hesitated. Never mind. I don't want to cause any trouble. Alana sensed Marta's reluctance. Marta, if there's something you need to tell me, please do. You're family to us. Marta remained silent for a moment. I'm just worried Crispin's overextending himself. He's juggling multiple people, multiple clients. He's been more secretive lately, and it's not just about business. He's meeting someone named Ms. Larrabee quite often. A cold wave passed through Alana. I appreciate your concern, Marta. But Crispin's a grown man. He knows what he's doing. She ended the call, putting on a brave front. Inside, however, her suspicions were becoming too weighty to ignore. She started receiving cryptic phone calls, hang-ups, mostly with no caller ID. A few times a woman's hushed breath lingered on the line before disconnecting. After nights of restless sleep, Alana decided it was time to address the issue head-on. But confrontation never came easily. She wrestled with the possibility that Crispin could be unfaithful. Their life together, mansion, business success, charitable work seemed almost perfect from the outside. Was she overreacting to rumors and illusions? Or was Crispin truly leading a double life? And if so, did she want to know the grim details? Despite her hesitations, Alana noticed Crispin's unusual behavior intensifying. He began having unexplained late-night meetings, returning home smelling of expensive perfume that wasn't hers. His credit card statements revealed extravagant charges at luxury boutiques she had never set foot in. Her anxieties swelled, but Crispin always provided a smooth explanation: client gifts, team dinners, hotel expansions. When Crispin mentioned another business trip, this time to Vancouver, Alana decided that the time for passivity was over. She would get to the bottom of it, even if it shattered her illusions. Alana orchestrated her own quiet investigation. She scoured Crispin's corporate travel logs, cross-checking them with Marta's scheduling notes. She discovered overlaps with Kendra Larrabee's known schedule. Kendra was indeed an interior designer Crispin had met a year ago. Over the past months, Crispin and Kendra's flight bookings coincided disturbingly often, like puzzle pieces that fit too neatly. Alana also found a suspicious bank transfer Crispin made to Kendra's private account labeled as an advance for future projects. The sum was larger than anything typical for preliminary design work. A swirling blend of anger and heartbreak clouded Alana's judgment. She felt compelled to gather concrete proof, though a part of her wanted desperately for Crispin to be innocent, that the rumors were baseless, or that there was a perfectly logical explanation. But late one night while Crispin was sleeping, Alana carefully took his phone from the nightstand and tried to unlock it. She guessed possible passcodes, his birth date, their wedding anniversary, even the day they first met. Nothing worked. Finally, she tried Crispin's mother's birthday and the phone unlocked. Her heart pounded as she scanned Crispin's messages. Dozens of texts from Kendra. Some were strictly business, referencing the hotel expansions, but others were undeniably intimate. The words, "I miss you" and "last night was amazing" glared back at Alana in the dim glow of the screen. She stifled a sob. It felt like an out-of-body experience, like the ground beneath her had vanished, leaving her in freefall. In that moment, her emotional world collapsed. She placed the phone back, tiptoeing out of the bedroom. The rest of the night passed in insomnia, tears streaming silently as she stood on the mansion's balcony staring at the moonlit lake. How could Crispin do this to her? Everything they had built together was now tarnished by betrayal. Yet Alana was not the type to confront Crispin with a storm of accusations. She despised scenes, a trait hammered into her from childhood. She remembered watching her parents handle adversity with measured calm. But that morning, as Crispin prepared to leave for his business trip, Alana forced herself to smile and bid him farewell. Crispin left the driveway in his black luxury sedan, clueless about the storm raging inside her. Over the next few days, Alana put up an impeccable facade. She attended charity events, participated in staff meetings, and even entertained Crispin's business associates at the mansion. Inside, however, a quiet rage and heartbreak churned. She asked herself, do I let him lie and keep the status quo, or do I bring the house of cards tumbling down? She couldn't imagine continuing life as if nothing had changed, but she also struggled to imagine walking away from everything she'd helped build. One evening, Crispin announced he would be returning late from a critical meeting in the city. Alana decided she wouldn't wait. She hired a private investigator, a discreet professional named Garth Delaney, recommended by a friend in legal circles. Garth had a reputation for digging up evidence without leaving traces, perfect for Alana's needs. Within a week, Garth delivered a manila folder filled with photographs and details. Crispin and Kendra were meeting regularly at high-end restaurants, sometimes staying overnight at a penthouse suite Crispin kept under a shell corporation. A swirl of jealousy, hurt, and betrayal overwhelmed Alana as she saw a photo of Crispin pressing a kiss to Kendra's hand in broad daylight. But the final blow came when Garth revealed Crispin had started funneling funds into a separate account, money that in part originated from their jointly held investments. Crispin was effectively siphoning mutual assets into his personal stash. Why? The question burned in Alana's mind. Was Crispin planning to run off with Kendra, create a new life behind her back? All the philanthropic, generous gestures Crispin once made felt like a twisted irony. Alana's illusions were fully shattered. Time seemed to speed forward, presenting Alana an unasked-for chance to catch Crispin in the act. Crispin had told her he'd be out of town for 2 days, but Marta's schedule indicated only a single business dinner. Suspecting Crispin lied again, Alana enlisted Marta's help to track Crispin's driver's location on the sly. Late at night, as Crispin supposedly flew to Boston, the GPS signal from his driver's phone hovered in the city's affluent West Side district. Determined to find out the truth, Alana quietly slipped out of the mansion, driving her car through winding streets until she reached an upscale apartment complex known for short-term corporate rentals. Rain drizzled, creating a gleaming reflection of streetlights on the pavement. Alana parked, heart pounding. She walked up to the building, ignoring the doorman's questioning glance. Her reflection stared back from the elevator's stainless steel doors, face pale but resolute. She arrived at the penthouse floor. Only one door separated her from Crispin's betrayal. For a moment she hesitated. What if she was wrong? What if Crispin was alone inside preparing a surprise? Her rational mind scoffed at the notion, but she found herself clinging to any hope of his innocence. Alana pressed her ear against the wooden door, hearing muffled laughter. She turned the knob, unlocked, an odd detail that suggested Crispin had no fear of being caught. She stepped inside. Plush carpets, designer furniture, soft jazz playing in the background. In the living room, Crispin reclined on a leather sofa, sipping a glass of whiskey. Next to him, Kendra was curled under his arm, wearing a silky robe that left little to the imagination. They were so engrossed in each other that neither noticed Alana at first. Time froze as Alana watched them, her heartbeat throbbing in her ears. Then Crispin looked up, eyes widening. Kendra gasped, nearly dropping her champagne flute. A hush blanketed the room, broken only by the hiss of the central air system. Alana Crispin began shooting upright. I thought you were out of town," Alana said softly. "And yet here I am." The calmness in her voice seemed more jarring than any screaming accusation. Kendra scrambled off the sofa, trying to adjust her robe. She glanced at Crispin with panic, uncertain of what to do. Alana walked slowly toward the couple, her heels clicking on the hardwood floor, echoing her measured resolve. She reached into her handbag, pulling out an envelope. Crispin stood, frozen shame and a hint of indignation flickering across his face. "Alana, wait, let's talk about—" Her eyes darted between Crispin and Kendra. She inhaled slowly, steadying her trembling emotions. "No, I'm done talking." She held out the envelope. "What's this?" Crispin asked warily, taking the envelope. His gaze met hers, confusion mingled with dread. "That's the deed to the house," Alana said, voice low and unwavering. "Our mansion in Lake Forest. I've had it legally transferred to your name alone. Congratulations, Crispin. It's all yours now." A stunned silence followed. Crispin's mouth opened, then closed as if he couldn't form words. Kendra hovered behind him, uncertain whether to remain or flee. Why would you do that?" Crispin stammered, looking at the envelope in disbelief. Alana's lips curled in a sad smile. "Because I don't want any part of this anymore. This marriage, this home that's poisoned by your lies. Keep it. Keep everything. I won't fight you. I just want my freedom." Tears threatened at the corners of Alana's eyes, but she blinked them back. She refused to break down in front of Crispin or his mistress. The power of her composure was palpable, like a calm sea concealing raging undercurrents. Alana turned to leave. Kendra glanced from Crispin to Alana, seemingly caught between guilt and curiosity. Crispin tried to step forward, but Alana raised a hand to stop him. "Don't follow me," she whispered. She walked out the door, the sound of her footsteps disappearing down the corridor. In the elevator, she allowed herself only a single tear rolling down her cheek. As she exited the building, the drizzle had turned into a downpour. She stepped into the rain without an umbrella, letting the cold droplets mingle with her tears. The next morning, Crispin's texts and voicemails flooded Alana's phone. They ranged from frantic apologies to angry outbursts. He left multiple voice messages. "Alana, we can fix this. Let's talk." Then, "Where are you? You can't just walk away." And later a quiet, desperate message. "I'm sorry. Please come home." But Alana had no intention of returning to the Lake Forest mansion. She checked into a modest suite in a downtown hotel. In that silent room, she felt an odd sense of relief, though her heartbreak persisted. Over the following days, she hired an attorney, Randall Parker, an old acquaintance from her business network, known for representing high-stakes divorces. She made one thing clear: she didn't want Crispin's money. She only wanted to ensure that Crispin couldn't manipulate her further. Randall cautioned her that Crispin might try to conceal assets or even sabotage her professional reputation. Alana simply nodded. She was ready to face any storm. It wasn't long before Crispin discovered that Alana wasn't bluffing. He realized that legally she had separated her personal finances from his months ago, ever since she first suspected his betrayal. The house deed was entirely in Crispin's name now, but many of their joint accounts were closed or drained of her share. Crispin also learned that some of Alana's contributions in the company, her intellectual property contracts she had negotiated, could be under her personal ownership. This threatened to dismantle part of Crispin's empire from the inside. In a fury, Crispin tried to salvage the situation. He reached out to Alana's parents, attempting to sway them to reason with her. Everett and Judith Rivers were heartbroken, but they respected their daughter's autonomy. "We stand by Alana's decision," Everett said, calmly ending Crispin's call. Crispin then tried another angle, planting rumors in the press that Alana had stolen company secrets. But Alana and her attorney swiftly refuted the claims, presenting documented proof of Crispin's wrongdoing and conflicting statements. Meanwhile, Kendra Larrabee became an unintended casualty. Crispin's board of directors, concerned about the scandal, scrutinized Crispin's every move. Kendra's design projects came under review, exposing inflated invoices that Crispin had approved. Investors panicked, forcing Crispin to attend crisis meetings to reassure them that the business was stable. Not one to be outplayed, Crispin attempted a reconciliation. He promised to cut off all ties with Kendra to devote himself entirely to Alana. He even pulled strings to buy billboard ads reading, "Alana, I'm sorry," plastered along major Chicago highways. Alana saw them, once her stomach turning. She turned off the exit ramp, ignoring the giant pleas that towered over the city's skyline. The media, now partially aware of the drama, began labeling Crispin a playboy philanthropist. Journalists combed through Crispin's philanthropic records, unearthing questionable transactions and personal extravagances disguised as charitable donations. Public opinion soured. Crispin's name slowly became toxic in certain business circles, tarnishing the brand he had so carefully cultivated. The once revered Crispin Thorne was now fighting to keep his empire afloat amid personal and professional turmoil. Alana, for her part, found an unexpected calm in her new life. She rented a small apartment reminiscent of her upbringing, basic but cozy. She reconnected with college friends, spent hours reading business proposals from budding entrepreneurs who sought her mentorship. She realized that her biggest fear, losing the life she built with Crispin, was overshadowed by the freedom she felt. For the first time in years, she wasn't tethered to Crispin's dizzying demands. Even so, her emotional wounds hadn't fully healed. At night, she dreamt of their wedding, Crispin's vows echoing in her mind. The ring on her finger felt heavier than ever, and eventually she slipped it off for good, placing it in a safe deposit box, an artifact of a life left behind. Amid the chaos, Alana made a life-altering decision. She would no longer define herself by the ruins Crispin left behind. She would reclaim her story not as a betrayed wife, but as the determined woman who had always carved her way forward. With quiet resolve, she began sketching out a blueprint for a new future, one rooted in purpose rather than revenge. Alana knew that a divorce didn't mean the end. For her, it marked a reawakening. She had spent years helping build Crispin's empire, running logistics, negotiating high-stake deals, analyzing market data, and now all that expertise would be channeled into something that bore her name. Drawing from her network of former colleagues, professors, and entrepreneurs who respected her integrity, she launched a small but ambitious venture capital firm focused on social enterprises. She named it Rivers Venture Partners, a tribute to her roots, her parents, and the steady values that guided her through life. For Alana, it was more than a business. It was a philosophy: invest in people who had vision, resilience, and the desire to uplift their communities. She sought out women-led startups, green initiatives, educational platforms, and businesses revitalizing underserved neighborhoods. Her first major investment, a literacy nonprofit in Rockford that her mother once volunteered for, now struggling to stay afloat. In just months, Rivers Venture Partners became a rising star in Chicago's financial scene. Local business journals began highlighting Alana's unconventional success, how she transformed personal heartbreak into a force for community change. Her poise, rare in a field dominated by hardened financiers, drew admiration. Major publications requested interviews. Alana always kept her focus forward, refusing to let Crispin's name define her narrative. Meanwhile, Crispin's world slowly crumbled. Investors were skittish. Board members questioned his judgment, especially after leaked internal emails hinted at conflicts of interest between his romantic entanglements and corporate dealings. Once viewed as a visionary, Crispin now bore the weight of scandal. Kendra Larrabee, once his glamorous companion, fled the spotlight. She cut ties with Crispin the moment it was clear the ship was sinking and aligned herself with a new client rumored to be a tech billionaire. In the mansion that once bustled with gala preparations and power dinners, Crispin now sat alone. The luxury that once defined his status, imported wines, designer furniture, custom artwork, became a prison of his own making. The silence in the house was deafening, a sharp contrast to the vibrant partnership he once shared with Alana. The home he had won now felt hollow, void of purpose or love. Desperate Crispin called Marcus Caldwell his oldest friend and business partner, but Marcus had grown wary of Crispin's spiral. "We built something real," Marcus snapped during a late-night call. "And you risked it all for vanity and lies. The board's ready to vote you out if things don't stabilize. Get your house in order, Crispin." The words hit him harder than he expected. For Alana, healing wasn't immediate. She had moments late at night staring at the ceiling where memories came flooding back, their honeymoon in Bora Bora, whispered dreams over candlelit dinners the moment Crispin slipped a ring on her finger. But those were just fragments now. Beautiful lies wrapped in silk. What mattered more was the fire that had reignited in her the drive to build something meaningful. She poured herself into work. Each day brought a new pitch deck, a new entrepreneur fighting against odds she knew all too well. Her team grew, including young women from Rockford who reminded her of her own beginnings. She mentored them not just in finance, but in how to walk through doors that once seemed locked shut. A turning point came when she was invited to speak at Greenfield University, her alma mater, the very place where she had once met Crispin. Standing on stage in the business school's grand auditorium, Alana gazed into a sea of bright-eyed students. She shared her journey, not the tabloid version, but the one filled with grit, pain, and redemption. Success, she told them, isn't measured by the mansion you live in or the money in your account. It's measured by how you rise when everything falls apart. The applause that followed wasn't just polite, it was thunderous, heartfelt. And in that moment, Alana knew she had stepped fully into her new path. Months slipped by like pages in a well-worn book, each one taking Alana farther from the chaos that once defined her life. She had expected healing to be swift once she severed ties with Crispin, but real recovery, emotional and spiritual, took longer. It wasn't about forgetting. It was about accepting the past without letting it control the future. Her new rhythm of life was quieter, more deliberate. Morning coffees without tension, long walks through parks with a notebook in hand, late nights spent reviewing business proposals from founders who reminded her of herself in college, hungry, hopeful, scrappy. She no longer chased headlines or tried to keep up appearances. She had nothing to prove, and that realization brought with it a rare kind of peace. Rivers Venture Partners. Her firm grew quickly, faster than even she had anticipated. The public respected her strength, especially the grace with which she handled the fallout from her very public divorce. There were no exposés, no revenge memoirs, just progress, purpose, quiet wins. Alana became a mentor to young women in finance, often speaking at business schools, women's conferences, and startup incubators. In one panel event, a student nervously asked, "How do you forgive someone who broke you?" Alana took a long pause before answering. "You don't forgive them for their sake," she said gently. "You forgive them so they no longer have power over your peace." Meanwhile, Crispin Thorne was undergoing a transformation of his own, or at least trying to. His once formidable business empire had been battered by months of legal disputes, board mutiny, and investor withdrawals. Though it hadn't completely collapsed, it had certainly lost its sheen. Publicly, Crispin stepped back from the spotlight, issuing a carefully worded statement. "After a challenging year, I am taking time to reflect, to heal, and to give others in my organization the space to lead." The media called it a rebrand. Insiders called it a forced retreat. Privately, Crispin was unraveling. Therapy sessions became his lifeline, and not the polished, intellectualized kind he once mocked. He began digging into parts of himself he had long ignored, the abandonment issues from a father who was always at sea, the desperation to be seen, the fear of irrelevance that led him to seek validation in all the wrong places. He tried to maintain professionalism, but loneliness gnawed at the edges of his sanity. Kendra was long gone. No dramatic exit. Just a text. "This isn't working anymore. Good luck." He hadn't heard from her since. Marcus Caldwell, once his business partner and closest confidant, kept interactions strictly formal. "We've got a board to stabilize," Marcus reminded him curtly. "I can't keep cleaning up after you." One chilly afternoon in February, Crispin sat alone in his home office staring at the deed to the Lake Forest mansion. Alana had transferred it to him as a final act of closure, but it didn't feel like a prize. The house, once a symbol of shared success, now echoed with emptiness. No laughter, no light. Just high ceilings that made his failures feel louder. That day he picked up his phone and dialed Alana's office. "Rivers Venture Partners." "How may I help you?" a young assistant answered. "I'd like to speak to Alana," Crispin said. "She's in a meeting." "May I take a message?" He hesitated, then left a voicemail instead. His voice, when it came out, was softer than it used to be. Raw, unsure. "Alana, it's me. I know I'm the last person you want to hear from. I just need a moment. Not to win you back, not to fix the past. Just one moment, face to face." He didn't expect a reply. But 2 days later, Alana called back. They agreed to meet in a neutral place, a quiet, upscale cafe with glass walls and warm lighting halfway between their old world and the new one Alana had built. She arrived first. Dressed in a soft gray coat and navy blouse, she looked calm-centered. The barista greeted her by name. She ordered a latte and took the corner seat back, straight eyes scanning the snow-covered city streets. When Crispin arrived, she was momentarily taken aback. He looked older, less polished, more human. The man who once wore power like a second skin now seemed humbled. His suit wasn't bespoke, his watch wasn't flashy, and there was a weariness in his shoulders that hadn't been there before. "Alana," he said almost reverently. "Crispin?" She nodded, gesturing for him to sit. "You look different." "I feel different," he replied, offering a faint smile. A long pause stretched between them. Finally, Crispin broke the silence. "I wanted to say I'm sorry," he said. "Not just for what I did to us, but for who I was when I did it. I've spent months thinking about you, about how I let the best thing in my life slip through my fingers." Alana didn't speak right away. She sipped her latte, eyes never leaving his. "I believe you," she finally said, "but belief doesn't mean restoration. It doesn't mean I forget the nights I cried on that balcony or how I had to hold my head high while people whispered behind my back." Crispin nodded, eyes damp. "I know. And I don't expect forgiveness, not really. I just needed to look you in the eye and tell you that I've changed. Or at least, I'm trying to." Alana studied him, and for the first time in years she saw not the man who betrayed her, but the boy he used to be. Insecure, frantic, chasing approval. "I hope you succeed," she said, "because you'll never build anything meaningful until you stop trying to fill the void with applause." He chuckled, a tear escaping down his cheek. "You always knew how to cut to the core." She reached into her bag and placed an envelope on the table. "These are the final papers," she said. "I had them revised one last time. You'll keep the mansion. I've removed any claim to your business holdings. All I ask is that you don't contest my firm's contracts or try to interfere in my deals." Crispin nodded. "I wouldn't dare." She stood adjusting her coat. "Goodbye, Crispin. Goodbye, Alana." As she walked away, Crispin remained seated, clutching the envelope like a relic. Outside the cafe, Alana paused for a moment, watching the snow fall, and took a long, deep breath. She didn't cry. She didn't feel triumphant. She simply felt whole. She didn't need Crispin's redemption. She had already claimed her own. Days after that final meeting in the cafe, Alana sat quietly in her office at Rivers Venture Partners, watching dusk fall over the city skyline. The air smelled of rain, and the amber light streaming through the windows seemed to soften everything it touched. On her desk, a folder lay unopened. It contained the final legal documentation confirming the dissolution of her marriage to Crispin Thorne. She had already signed it, but she hadn't yet read the letter tucked inside from his attorneys. Alana didn't need to. There was no curiosity left, no bitterness, no lingering what-ifs. She had already mourned what was lost and buried what no longer served her. The clean break was real. Outside her office, her assistant knocked gently. Ms. Rivers, Channel 9, just released a report. Crispin Thorne officially stepped down as CEO of Thorne Global Holdings. Alana turned her chair slightly. Did they say why? The assistant nodded. He says he's going to focus on philanthropy. Some think it's a cover, but the reaction's mixed. Public opinion still hasn't recovered. Alana smiled faintly. He's trying to rewrite his legacy. That's his journey now. The assistant lingered, hesitating. Do you want to make a statement? Alana shook her head. No. My work speaks for itself. That night she stood on the balcony of her high-rise sipping tea as the city shimmered below her. She felt no desire to celebrate or retaliate. There was no need. The most powerful thing she could do now was live her truth authentically and boldly without ever mentioning his name again. She had started over not just on paper, but deep in her bones. She had shed the burden of the perfect wife image, the exhausting facade of elegance and control. Now she wore ambition, like a tailored coat, confident, unapologetic, and truly hers. Weeks later, she traveled back to Rockford for the first time since the divorce was finalized. It wasn't a trip she made often anymore, but something in her heart tugged her homeward. Her parents welcomed her with open arms, tears in her mother's eyes as she embraced her daughter on the porch. Judith Rivers stepped back and said, "You look like yourself again." Everett grinned, clapping Alana on the shoulder. "Still got that steel in your spine." They ate a simple meal together, grilled chicken, buttered corn, Judith's famous lemon pie. It was a stark contrast to the 7-course dinners she'd grown used to in her former life. Yet nothing tasted more nourishing than the laughter shared around that old wooden table. After dinner, Alana sat with her parents by the fireplace. Her mother brought out a photo album filled with pictures of Alana as a girl, freckles, braids, oversized sweaters. One photo showed her standing in front of the local library, holding a hand-painted sign that read, "Future Businesswoman of America." Her father chuckled. "You couldn't have been more than 9 when you made that sign." "I meant it," Alana replied, smiling at the memory. "You still do," her mother said softly. That night, Alana couldn't sleep. She walked the quiet streets of her old neighborhood in sneakers and a hoodie hood pulled up against the cool breeze. She passed her old school, the community center, the corner bodega where she once begged her parents for fruit-flavored candy. Everything had changed, and yet everything felt the same. It was humbling, grounding, and it reminded her of who she had always been before the world tried to reshape her. As dawn broke, Alana paused by the edge of a small park where a lone bench faced east. She sat down watching the first rays of sunlight stretch across the sky. With the glow warming her skin, she allowed herself a quiet moment to reflect. Crispin's betrayal had once seemed like the end of everything. But now she saw it clearly. It had been the beginning. The crack that let her true self escape. The fire that burned away what no longer belonged. The storm that cleared the sky. Her firm was thriving. Her name was respected. Her dignity was intact. And most importantly, her peace was no longer for sale. She stood taking one last look at the neighborhood before heading back to her parents' home. There were still projects to fund people, to mentor communities, to uplift. Her story wasn't just one of survival. It was one of resurgence, reinvention, and rising higher than she ever dreamed possible. And as she walked forward into the morning light, one truth pulsed steadily in her heart. She hadn't lost everything. She had finally fully found herself. Thank you for joining me on this roller coaster of betrayal, resilience, and hope. Alana's story reminds us that sometimes we find our greatest strength in the midst of unimaginable heartbreak. Her calm demeanor, even at the moment she handed over the house deed, showcased a powerful lesson. True power lies not in how loudly we confront adversity, but in how resolutely we choose our own dignity and freedom. If this story moved you, if you felt Alana's turmoil, Crispin's desperation, and the sweet taste of liberation, she finally claimed help. Share it with others who might need a spark of courage in their own lives. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment about the part that resonated with you most. Your support ensures we continue crafting these riveting tales. Together, let's spread stories that inspire us to break free from betrayal and discover our true worth.